welcome to All Things Iceland, the place to get the inside scoop on Icelandic nature, history, culture, and language. My name is Jules, and today we're going on an adventure! We are going to be going around the Golden Circle, and I'm super excited about this. The weather is overcast, maybe it might rain, maybe it might be foggy, who knows? It's Iceland, that's just how it is. But this is going to be an intense day. And I want to start it out in a special way for an adventure breakfast, if you will, which means we're going to the bakery. So we're gonna head to the bakery, get some energizing, not maybe all that nutritious food, and hit the road. All right, bakery time. So I decided to get caramel and gonna have a little bit. It's so good, like, honestly. Yay! I'm not that hungry, but I am going to have a little bit just because I want to have something in my stomach. I'll be on the road for some time. So. Adventure time! Stop at Þingvellir, which is behind me, and it's a bit basically Þingvellir Lake. And what's awesome about this lake, besides the fact that there's amazing light behind me there, is that it is the largest natural lake in Iceland. So it has, I believe it's 84 square kilometers as a surface and 114 meters of depth. So really cool, and it's so beautiful today, and I'm excited to have you along with me. I will be giving facts about each place that I stop at when it's appropriate, of course, in Þingvellir, all the main places, and then the different areas that are a little bit off the beaten path. So I made it to Þingvellir, and behind me is the visitor center, but in order to be in there, like long term, you have to wear a mask, which I totally understand. And also, it's just not a whole lot going on there because there are not many visitors. So I decided to kind of just start walking around from here, and we're gonna go look at the scenery and all the amazing things that's on offer in this place. The one thing I have to say is that it's so crazy to be here without people. It just feels bizarre because the only time I've ever been here is when a lot of other people have been here, but at the same time it's amazing, and I'm just in awe of how beautiful this is, especially in the fall. Okay, so I'm going to share some awesome facts regarding Þingvellir National Park, just because this is such a historically significant place for Iceland, and also landscape-wise, it's gorgeous, and there's certain things that would be awesome for you to know just because they're so fascinating, at least in my opinion. So on the historical part, Alþingi, which is the Parliament of Iceland, used to meet in this area here, and its chieftains from all around the country would travel to come here in order to settle disputes, make new laws, and party. Because if you're gonna travel all that way, you might as well party, of course. And so, super fascinating place. And the other interesting thing is that it's the oldest parliament in the world. They now meet in the downtown area in the Alþingi building. And if you haven't seen that, don't worry, I will do a trip around Reykjavik, where I will show that to you. So this is the first national park in Iceland, and in 1944, as a fun fact, Icelanders declared their independence from Denmark here, even though, like I mentioned, Alþingi their meeting place had been moved to downtown Reykjavik. So I'm standing right now in a rift valley, which is in essence where the Eurasian and North American tectonic plates meet. And what's cool is that if I had really, really like long arms, if I was Stretch Armstrong, I would be able to touch those tectonic plates and be on two continents at the same time. But not possible. At the same time though, you can know that you're in between those continents. They are slowly drifting apart by 2 centimeters every year. And if Iceland didn't have as much volcanic activity, this country would rip apart. But because of that volcanic activity, it's continuously being filled in by new formed rocks and formation. I could literally spend all day here because there are awesome hiking trails, beautiful waterfall, there's clean, fresh water. In fact, you can go snorkeling and diving in Silfra. So there's so much to do here. However, I'm just gonna walk around, show you some of the highlights, and you might recognize some scenes from Game of Thrones if you happen to watch that show. Even though summer is such a popular time to come to Iceland, and I understand because it is warmer, the fall is gorgeous. Like, it's a very short season, but the colors are amazing. Check this out. You might be able to hear the rumble as I'm approaching the waterfall. I won't be able to talk there just because obviously it's quite loud, but it's so pretty. One thing I want to mention is that you'll see in the water here, and I'm going to show you, that there is sparkly stuff. And those are actually coins that people have been throwing into the water. And you're not supposed to do that. I know in other places, like in fountains and stuff, people do that. But in Iceland, please do not do that. There's even a sign. There's one part of the national park in particular that I really love going to. I mean, granted, all of it's beautiful, but I'm walking there now, and it's not very far from where you enter into the park and into the Rift Valley. So I definitely recommend going to this place, and you'll see why. So after some people watched my video about 18 things you should not do in Iceland and regarding like pooping outdoors and stuff, people were like, are there restrooms? Yes, there are definitely restrooms. At Þingvellir, there are a lot of them, and I'm about to use one now. So now I'm at Brúarfoss, or at least the parking lot for it, and I'm planning to walk out there. It's raining a decent amount, and so this should be a walk that will be a little long, and I'll probably be wet. I think it takes round trip is like 7 kilometers, which is 4.4 miles or something like that. And that's no big deal. It's supposed to be just an easy walk, nothing like hilly or whatever. So that's good. It's just that, of course, being out there for that long in the rain, but I feel like it's worth it. And one thing I want to point out is that there used to be a shorter walk to the waterfall. However, people who were visiting were messing up the landscape. So it was on private property, and no kidding, like, people were just trampling on the fragile nature. People were pooping in places they weren't supposed to. So this is a real problem. And then the owners of that property were just like, screw it, we're not going to put up with this anymore. And now there's like an official parking lot for this place, but you have to walk much, much farther than before. So that's how it is. And hopefully people are respecting the nature more now. So it has stopped raining, or at least it's just like light drizzle, kind of like when someone does raspberries and like all over you. It's a little bit like that, but no big deal. I mean, granted, I don't mind the rain. It's just, I don't want to be soaked and then still have to go to so many other places. Oh, one thing I have to mention is that on the path, I noticed that there's a white pole that doesn't have a sign on it anymore. I'm guessing it maybe once said Brúarfoss. So when you get to the parking lot, there's a white pole, and just veer to the right of that white pole if a sign doesn't appear in like between you seeing this video and when you come to visit. It rained a lot recently, so it is quite muddy out here, and my shoes are looking extra chocolatey. Not cute. I'll just have to clean them off later. It is so important to come packed prepared for Iceland, and having hiking boots, first of all, and hiking boots that are water repellent, water resistant. I mean, obviously 100% water resistant would be like rubber or something, but not that, but still really good water repellent. Like the boots I have on right now are awesome. Like I'm not gonna have wet socks after this, and even though my shoes get muddy, they're made for being outdoors. They're made for this type of stuff, so it's okay. So right now we're walking through an Icelandic forest, and there's a joke in Iceland that if you ever get lost in an Icelandic forest, just stand up, because it's not very tall. There are really sturdy, beautiful birch trees, but they don't get that tall. So this waterfall is called Gullfoss, and it is beautiful. What's nice is that even though Brúarfoss is the main attraction, if you will, there are other waterfalls along the way, just like the one that I just passed, that are fun to see and also just incredibly powerful. So really awesome. So in my opinion, even though Brúarfoss is not very high, it makes up for it with such beautiful color and composition. It's just so like widely spread out, and I just think the color of the blue is so captivating and mesmerizing that I feel like it's totally worth it to make the trek, which is around 7 kilometers round trip to here, and plus you get the added bonus of 2 other waterfalls along the way. So there is one kind of hilly part here, and I mean like very, 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 very small part of the path, but it's behind me. You can see that, just as an FYI, for anyone who may be like, you said it's really flat. It is, mostly, and I just had forgotten about that part, so now you know. We have made it to Geysir, or the hot spring area, and it is lovely and so quiet here. It's incredible. As I'm getting closer to the geyser, I'm seeing that there's like 4 people there waiting for it to blow up. I think this is probably the smallest amount of people I've ever seen. And for those who have been wondering about like if it's easy to walk here, as you can see, there's like a path that almost looks like the yellow brick road. Once you need to go and actually see Geysir, it changes to a path like that. And I'm saying Geysir, but I'm gonna give some facts about the geysers here and just what you can expect, and also the fact that you probably just want to see around and how beautiful it is. So some really fun facts regarding Geysir that I think is fascinating is that apparently it's the first geyser that was documented in a printed resource, and so all other geysers in the world get their name derived from Geysir, which is actually derived from the Icelandic verb geysa, which means to gush, which I think is pretty appropriate. And while I'm talking about geysers, there's a good chance that this one, which is Strokkur, will go off while I'm talking, and it's the one that goes off most frequently. I'll show you what Geysir looks like, but it's not going to more than likely go off just because it's been dormant. There are times where people were putting soap into it to make it erupt more often, and there were also instances in which earthquakes have made Geysir shoot boiling hot water up into the air. But at the moment, Strokkur is the most reliable one. So that is the one that you get to see when you come here. I feel like I've gotten that was actually a really good one. Nice. As the sign says, this is a dormant geyser, but looking at the size of it, you can only imagine in comparison to Strokkur how big and amazing of an eruption this would be if you're able to be lucky enough to be here when it happens. I would love in my lifetime to be able to see Geysir go off, but that probably means an earthquake is happening or that someone is doing it artificially. Not necessarily the case, but good chances are that's how it would happen. So normally you can do the Golden Circle in one day, and by all means I think you should consider this a one-day event. Granted, Brúarfoss, if you were to go there probably late in the day like I did, then it would make it a little bit harder. Like I started my day just kind of late, so I am splitting this up into 2 days, but I'm gonna rest my head in this lovely Panorama glass lodge in the Hella area and just take a look at Sarah. So I'm in the car and the windshield is frosted over because it's that time of year. In fact, it says, my car says -3 outside. So yeah, gonna have to wait a little bit for it to defrost, but the adventure continues. This stop is pretty special, at least in my opinion, because we're in a forest in Iceland, specifically Haukadalsskógur. And what's fascinating is that this forest is super close to Geysir, which is a main tourist attraction. and yet many people do not end up coming here. And it's just because they don't know about it. And directly behind me is a church called Haukadalsskógur. And this is one of the oldest timber churches in Iceland. It was built in between 1842 and 1843 and then rebuilt in 1933. There's a really fascinating story about a troll named Bergthor who lived in the Haukadalur area way back in the day. At one point he did move away, but he did say to one of the farmers here that he wanted to be buried when he died near the church, close enough to be able to hear the church bells ringing, and he ended up dying. Some men went to go get his body and to bury him, and they ended up using a ring from his walking stick on the door of this church. And that's something which is really cool and just kind of fascinating part of folklore here in Iceland. So you're probably wondering, why does this area have a whole bunch of trees but not other parts of Iceland or most of Iceland? A really fascinating thing is that apparently there were a lot of trees when settlers came to Iceland in the 9th and 10th centuries, but you know, they started to use the wood. and also, to be fair, there were also other conditions that happened. So it wasn't just people cutting down trees and using them that ended in Iceland not having as many trees. It's also because there were periods in the country where it was super cold, like different conditions happened that led to Iceland not having a lot of trees. And a lot of measures have been taken to protect this area and the trees and the different flora from soil erosion, because that's one of the main challenges that they face if they were just kind of left to their own devices. And I just think it's really awesome to be able to come here, walk around. There are different hiking trails, there are rivers. So lots of really cool things in this area. And if you have the time, I think it is worth it to come to Haukadalsskógur and look around, chill out, enjoy some trees in Iceland, because you're not gonna see them everywhere, that's for sure. There's also an area called Hákonarlundur, which is in memory of Hákon Bjarnason, who was the forestry director for like 42 years, which is pretty amazing. And in that area is a totem pole that was carved out of wood that basically tells the story of reforestation in Iceland, and it was erected on the 100th anniversary of reforestation in Iceland and the 60th anniversary of reforestation in this area. And yes, I'm wearing the same clothes both days. Don't judge me, okay? It's no big deal. You can definitely pick and choose the things that you want to do on this adventure when you come to Iceland. But like I mentioned in the video, there are things I feel are totally worth it in terms of getting that experience here in Iceland. But it's your time, so feel free to do what you like, and I hope you just enjoy. That's kind of the whole point of all of this. We made it to Gullfoss waterfall, which is super beautiful. It's a 2-tiered waterfall, and Gullfoss in Icelandic means golden waterfall, not to be confused with golden showers. Dirty minds. Terrible joke. Anyway, so Gullfoss waterfall is fascinating for a couple of reasons, mainly because of the way it's structured, but also it almost didn't exist for people like you and me to be able to see. Back in the early 20th century, some owners of this land indirectly allowed for some foreign investors to get a contract that would allow them to build a hydroelectric power plant, which in essence would destroy the waterfall and it would not be here today. Thankfully, one of the daughters of the owners of this land loved Gullfoss, and she was like doing everything that she possibly could in order to save the waterfall. She literally walked 120 kilometers each way to Reykjavik from this area in order to fight for the cause to save this waterfall. She also, at one point when it seemed like nothing was working, threatened to throw herself into the waterfall. Thankfully it never came to that, but still it was quite a hard fight. And eventually her lawyer, Svein Björnsson, was able to help her to get the contract for the foreign investors annulled and thus saving the waterfall. The name of that woman is Sigríður Tómasdóttir, and in large part we have her to thank for this waterfall still existing, as well as her lawyer that I mentioned ended up becoming the first president of Iceland. Behind me is Faxafoss. It's pretty foxy. Of course I'm gonna say that. But yeah, it's just a super easy stop. So I've also come down to the bottom where you can see the falls way more up close and super cool. Check it out. I'm now walking towards Hrunalaug, which is a geothermal hot spring, or like hot pot basically, outdoors. It's private property and you're supposed to pay, I think like 1,000 krona or something like that. But you know, this is for people to be able to keep it up this place. There's a nice path. So just make sure that you pay when you get here so that, you know, this can continue to be a thing. Now in the changing facility, which is basically just a hut, like an outdoor hut. In fact, behind me, you can get into the water there. So yeah, it's definitely not like going to a normal pool where you would have, I don't know, an indoor facility, a shower, stuff like that. None of that is here. So just FYI. All right, so this is really nice. The pool that you come into from the dressing room is really small. I mean, it's basically like this area, and then there's like a wall here. I'm wearing my handy dandy shoes because I've had experiences in the past where I slipped because it's really slippery. There's like algae and different things kind of growing here. It's clean, but because it's warm here, obviously different things grow and it can get slippery. And I've fallen before, particularly in the West Fjords when we were like halfway through our trip around Iceland, and I cut my foot because I just lost my footing. There was one piece of the rock that my toe rubbed up against hard enough where it actually cut me, and I had to spend the rest of the trip with a cut foot, and that sucked. So now I bring shoes with me that are made for the water, and I always wear them whenever I'm going to a natural hot spring, just because there's a potential that I might slip, or that it might feel kind of like rocky or whatever else. One thing I did have a little issue with was the directions to the place on Google Maps was not exactly correct. So I will have more information about that in the description box in terms of how to get here, just because it might be a little bit confusing if you literally just input Hrunalaug into Google Maps, FYI. So today it's probably like 2 degrees Celsius at the moment, and it feels really nice to be in here soaking, listening to the running water, and just relaxing. One thing that I think is worth mentioning is that you can of course come to Hrunalaug and bathe like I am in this kind of more rugged, unique experience in Iceland that I feel like it's, kind of like a throwback to the days when there weren't all these built up facilities. Like the Blue Lagoon years ago, many years ago, was just basically kind of something like this, meaning like there weren't like fancy facilities and things. But if you prefer to do that instead of Hrunalaug, then you can go to the Secret Lagoon, which is nearby. You can go to Fontana Spa. All of that is within the area and just kind of gives you a different experience. I preferred to come here this time because I wanted to show you this unique experience. But like I mentioned, all types of options. So choose whatever suits you. Hi. I've just arrived to one of my favorite places, Friðheimar. What's awesome about this greenhouse, of course, besides it being really warm, is that they're growing tomatoes all year long here. And I believe it's something like they yield a ton of produce a day, and on average like 370 tons a year. And literally, like, as you're sitting at the table, you'll see tomatoes here, just like growing on the vine. You'll see bumblebees flying around. You can have like, you get the tomato soup, and it comes with like all you can eat bread. And there's everything on the menu has tomatoes in it because why not? And all this is using geothermal energy in the area, as well as it's a family business. So that's really cool. And it feels so good just to be in here. The warmth, the lights, the smells of the fresh produce. It's great. If you're going to do the Golden Circle, or even if you're not going to do the Golden Circle and you're just happen to be in the area, come here for lunch. I recommend it. It's so good. My family, whenever they come, they're always like, we have to go to that tomato greenhouse place. And so it's Friðheimar. So we always come and it never disappoints. All right, so now we're at Kerið crater, which is in the Grímsnes area in southern Iceland. And I personally really love this crater. It's a volcanic crater and it has red volcanic rock, which as you can see gives it such a stunning look and kind of that Mars, you know, on another planet type of feel. And in this crater, which is really fascinating, there have been concerts that have been done just because, you know, everyone can like sit around and you can hear pretty well the person when they're singing if they're like in a boat in the middle. This is one of the places that when I first came to Iceland, I was just like, whoa, this is amazing. How is it possible that this is even real? I love it so much, and it's such an easy place to get to from Reykjavik. So I'm definitely gonna go down to the bottom so that you can see that. This whole area is built up really well, meaning that when I first came here, it was mostly just rock, but now they've paved parts of the area. They have like areas where people can sit. So it's really nice and super accessible for people who have different abilities. So you don't have to necessarily be in hiking shape to be able to come here, and it's really accessible right off of the road. Literally, it was like, I don't know, 2 minutes ago, it was pouring rain, or not pouring rain, but wet enough for my jacket to get pretty wet. And now it's not, and it's clear and beautiful. So that's another thing that there's another joke in Iceland about. If you're not happy with the weather, wait 5 minutes. Yeah, sometimes it's even less time than that. One other thing I want to mention before I go is that I know the red rocks are really beautiful, but please don't take them. There have been people who have taken lava rock before as like a souvenir or something. Please don't do that. Help protect the nature here. Stay on the path. Only take the things that you came with, including your trash, and just enjoy the beauty of it and leave it so that other people can enjoy it as well. All right, people. It is time now to head back to Moso. I hope you've enjoyed this adventure and kind of hanging out with me while we're going around the Golden Circle and to all the other extra places that maybe not as many people go to or know about, but now you know. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share with anybody who you think will be coming to Iceland or has been, interested in coming to Iceland so that they know some of the best places around the Golden Circle to visit while they're here. And of course, more adventures are going to be coming your way. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.